Hey Joe, nice meeting you. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And let's get started. If you don't know Joe Martin yet, first you should. And if you still don't know him, then Joe is a Chicago-based consultant who helps companies align their messaging. He built and sold two companies, and his innovative ideas around work-life balance have been featured on WGN, Fox, and the TEDx stage. Great having you today, Joe.
Wonderful to see you again. It's always great.
Great. So let's get started. And maybe you could tell us a bit more about you and how did you get into messaging and copywriting in the first place?
Through where we've met, I appreciate that we've actually had the chance to meet in person. A lot of it through CXL, Conversion XL, which focuses on teaching people more about conversion rate optimization. And the more I learned about conversion rate optimization and how do you improve it? How do you get people to do the things you want them to do through your marketing? So much of it came back down to, what are you saying? I think one of the big jokes in the CRO community is this idea that we don't test button color because testing button color doesn't tell us anything. And I feel like with my degree in design for so long, I was designing in terms of thinking about different button colors. And once I started realizing just how important it is what you say and what an impact that can have, it's kind of led me down this road more of, hey, this is the most important thing.
Yeah, amazing. And so maybe just to give a brief overview, we first met in CXL Live last year, 2022 in Austin. I remember you being the star of most of the roundtables and most of the group discussions that we had there, and obviously the star of the parties. And I think you have a very interesting approach to crystallizing and making what a company does crystal clear. And I really like that focus that you took on the messaging and copywriting. And I think you're kind of like your flagship product is the one sentence concept, right?
Yeah. One of the things I got the top chance to do in the CRO world was test the call to action button on tourism websites. And what we found was a lot of tours have that button say buy tickets, or it says book now. And if we actually changed it to say see dates, we found that 25% more people entered the checkout process, which was crazy to think that two words had that much control over their 25% more people just based on two words. As I started looking at, well, what does the first sentence do then? The first sentence has even more than two words. What happens if you change those two sentences? And what I found is that first sentence on the website controls the entire organization. It sets the customer expectation. And whether you're going to be selling that your thing is fast or cheap or really well done, whatever you're choosing to put in that first sentence controls so much of the entire, the culture, the sales conversation, the marketing efforts, the success of your marketing efforts. Oh, it's crazy. Crazy, Samir.
So you have seen literally by changing the first sentence on a website and maybe adjusting it to the right audience, or maybe we'll get into the one target customer framework in a few moments. But if you adjust that one sentence to the right audience, you're going to see an uplift in conversions and how your audience reacts to that sentence. Maybe let's take a step back for a second, and you kind of I think a lot of copywriter literally a step back. You can step back. I'm sitting right now. You see, that's why you're the star of the parties in CXL. That's like that's more funny than what 95% of the people there can do. So if we're looking at how you got into messaging and copy, and then you created this concept of the one sentence, how did you, let's say, productize that service, reach, let's say, the concept of, hey, I'm going to do just the one sentence, I'm going to focus only on that, And this is the only thing I'm doing. I'm not doing any website copywriting. I'm not doing any about us pages and that kind of stuff. I'm not doing any ads. I'm only doing the one sentence on the website. How did you get there?
Kind of came down to asking myself what I do best and looking at if you take away everything else I can do, what is just that one thing that I'm really good at? And it seemed to be this idea of taking a business from where they are and misguided in the messaging to just saying, here's what you need to be doing. And then from that, for the past 6 years with my company, we work for 6 weeks and take off for 2. And that's helped us package so many things and kind of productize to work within the way that we want to work. And so I kind of built the business model around the way we wanted to work. And so with that, we decided to make it a 6-week process. Parkinson's law says that a task will take as long as you allow it to take. So we could let it take 6 months to help figure out messaging and your brand positioning and where your true value comes from, or we can just do it in 6 weeks and have it done. And so we've developed a process, refined it over the last 3 years, and we have always delivered on time, and we've never let a client down with the messaging we've worked with.
Amazing. Tell us a bit more about the 6 weeks, because I think that's a very interesting approach. I think it's very valuable for people to learn about. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I first heard about it from Jason Fried at Basecamp. And when I first heard the idea of working that way, it blew my mind to think that you could even work that way. I was like, hold on, I can do that? And I was like, well, hold on, I can do that. It just needed that little switch in me to say, I don't have to be doing this. And at the time, I think I was struggling with running my company because I'd started running my company in the same way of the company I just left. And all of a sudden I was saying, hey, you need to be here 9 to 5. Like, hey, we need to have these daily stand-up meetings. I always hated daily stand-up meetings. Now I'm like, oh, I need to bring daily stand-up meetings back. And I started building it in the way that I thought a company needed to be built. And 6-week cycles let me just completely break that and get rid of pointless meetings. It turns out that we don't need a stand-up meeting every day if everyone knows what the hell they're supposed to be working on and has the time to actually get that thing done. Turns out you don't need to hear from everyone every single day. You can let them get their things done if you take the time to tell them what needs to get done. So over those 2 weeks, we are planning everything that needs to get done over the next 6 weeks. So the rest of the team, they're able to kind of take the time off. My copywriter isn't as busy. My research assistant, he's not really needed as much. So some of the team gets to kind of wind down during those weeks. But for myself, and then a little bit of us in the C-suite area, like it's getting those 6 weeks planned. But even that is not the day-to-day grind. It's more casual. It's lighter. It feels better. I get to do stuff like this and hang out with you.
Yeah, I was actually sure this is the first week in your cycle, but this is like the downtime. This is when you do the fun stuff.
Yeah. Get me when I'm good. Don't get me when I'm stressed out trying to squeeze this in between projects.
Amazing. So I told you earlier, I'm actually going to implement that as soon as next week. So I'll report back on how this works. But I really like the concept. I'm definitely going to try it and see how it works. And you're also speaking about it in a very passionate and convincing way. So during the research for this episode, I was drawn into this and I have to do this 6 week cycle. So I'm starting my first one next week. Wish me luck.
And Godspeed. Yes. Good luck. You're going to love it. You're going to love it.
And I'll let you know how it goes.
Make sure in your calendar, you've jumped ahead and blocked off the 2 weeks at the end of the break.
Okay.
I want those completely blocked off. I'm not saying you don't have to take any meetings. Just try not to set up any meetings during those 2 weeks and give yourself that little bit of buffer space.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I think I got a plan. So this is what I'm going to do. Last 2 weeks of August, they're going to be blocked out and no meetings, no nothing.
Love it.
Just unwinding and doing some podcasts.
Yes.
Amazing. So let's get into the second part of your framework. One target customer profile concept. You want to speak a bit about that?
There's such a simple question that you can ask almost any company. And it's the first question that we have as copywriters. And it's the one question that companies can rarely answer, which is, who are we writing for? And that answer is usually, it's a 35 to 55-year-old female who's in their, late 40s. They give all these extraneous details about this mythical group of people that they have no clue who it really is. And while I've never been a 35-year-old woman, the needs of a 35-year-old woman are vastly different than that of a 55-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And in order to communicate your really unique value, we need to know who the hell we're talking to. And so we need to pick just one. So this is what we take companies through, is we work with them to pick just one target customer. I'm not saying you don't have more. I'm just saying, let's start with one. Let's just figure out one person all the way through, from when they first found out about you to when they tell 10 friends about you. Let's figure that out. Let's write that path down. Then we can go do bigger things. But until we have that, oh my God, it's just, there's no plan. Everything's a guessing game in marketing. It's a guessing game in SEO. We need to get it into something measurable.
Yeah, it's normally really a mess, and people are trying to reach out to everybody. And here is where I want to connect this with the theme of the podcast, which is bringing your company from one country to the other. So let's say I'm a European startup, I'm a German founder, and I want to start working with customers in Chicago because I ran out of market in Germany. Okay? Nobody buys from me in Germany. That's it. How do I find my one person? What do you think is different between my German customer and my American customer, my Chicago customer? How do I start looking into that?
You have to really know the person you're trying to sell to, which is the part that we love to skip over because we just want to get straight to profit. The little I can know about the person, the least I can respect them, the faster I can get something in front of them. And I hate this attention pollution mindset that we've grown up with. I put this ad in front of 1,000 people and I got one new customer. Great. Let's run the ad in front of 100,000 people so I can get 100 new customers. And we follow this model, just attention pollution, just whatever you can do to make me look at your thing in hopes that I buy it, even if it's not for me. I want to see that come to an end. And I think that it is a little more because of the amount of competition, that now you have to get more niche. You have to get more segmented because more people are advertising to that customer. And even outside of advertising them, it's just more people fighting for that person's attention everywhere, on the train, on the billboards, on buildings, at home with their children. Everywhere is the fight for their attention. And that's where if you're looking to break into that market, you're looking to get them, you have to really know the person. I always compare it back to a love song, and that you need to fall in love with them if you expect them to fall in love with you. You can't just go in expecting to just have people buy your stuff, get the money, and say, great, we're done. Those days are coming to a close. People want to work with companies that give a shit, and you can tell if they give a shit from the very beginning in how they speak to you.
So how do you fall in love with someone? How do you do that research of figuring out who your target customer is?
Start picking different ones. And so there's criteria. So I have 6 criteria for kind of choosing that person. The first one is, who do you even have access to? That has to start there. We can't just say people in Chicago if we don't have access to people in Chicago. We're not just going to do targeted Instagram ads. My God. So who do you have access to? Who will spend the most per transaction? Let's not go after the person who's only going to spend $30 with you once and never come back again. Who's that person we really want to go after? Because that's what's going to tie into the third one, which is who has that best overall lifetime value. Who's going to tell more people, which is what ties into the next one, of then who has the widest referral network. If we're really going to focus our efforts on someone, let's focus on the person who's going to spend the most, stay with us over time because they're loyal, tell their friends about it. And when you start looking at that person, we're going to find the person who really benefits most from what you do as well. Stop thinking it's for everyone. It's not for everyone. The second that you would give the small classification of, okay, great, it's perfect for people who write in kanji. You'd be like, okay, well, no, it doesn't really work for Asian countries. It's like, okay, cool. Then we've already moved on from who it's not for. Great, let's continue simplifying that.
Yeah.
So who do you have access to? Who's going to spend the most, the best lifetime value, biggest referral network, who's going to benefit from the most from the stuff you've done, and finally, who do you even want to enjoy working with as a customer? Do you want to go after the needy one that calls you all the time, wears down your customer services, and leaves shitty reviews because they have nothing better to do? If not, let's not target that person. Let's target the people we want to win instead of trying to go after a bunch of them and then winning the jerks that just want to ruin your day and say bad things about your company. Why do you even spend time going after them?
Let's speak about, I think everything here is clear. Let's speak about access for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Because I said we're not going to run targeted Instagram ads. So how do we get access?
Oh, who do we already know? How are we breaking into that market? Kind of comes down to what we're selling and what price are you selling it. So if you're trying to sell a $30 widget, that may be a different approach than trying to sell a software at $15,000 a month.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to sell that software at $15,000 a month, then we have to look at, well, who are you really trying to sell to? Because is the end customer even the person you should be going after? And we went through this with a home decor store. So it was a new online home decor store that was launching, and they're trying to compete against Amazon and Wayfair and some of these really big names to say, well, buy our stuff instead for home decor. And when we tried to help position them and we define their target customer as 27-year-old Kate, who will see an Instagram ad, and then she's going to come and she's going to buy one. And then that was it. So that was the wrong customer to go after. And so what we helped them finalize and see was actually going after Rachel, who's the interior designer, who's 44 years old, who has to buy this home decor for houses that she's staging. And she's going to buy multiple times per year for those different houses. She has different networks that she's going to refer these good products to friends. And so it just expanded based on who you would choose to go after. Of going after 27-year-old Kate or 42-year-old Rachel, we're going to make a huge difference in how the company was going to get bought.
And I think if we circle back to the access, then if you're going after the interior designer, it's probably easier to get a hold of them and to get some feedback back from them rather than someone random you're getting access to through the Instagram ads. So you don't really have a way to communicate with them at that point, or at least you don't really have a good way or a reliable one-to-one communication with them. Then you're still kind of like in a guesswork and you're seeing the actions they are doing, but you can't really get some like direct feedback from them. You can only see the end result.
Agreed. And we need some of that direct feedback initially. You need to know the real value that it holds, why people find it important. And so starting small, I like the idea of going through different customers. Start to pick one, go down that road, see where it gets you. Another example I have is we were working with a tour company out in Catalina Island off the coast of California. And they were targeting business owners in LA to say, hey, bring your team from LA down to Catalina Island for the day. And so we start going through the process of mapping out a 54-year-old Robert who runs his agency, who does all this stuff, and how do we win more Roberts? And what we found out is Robert's not the one doing this at all. It's 26-year-old Brittany, his administrative assistant, who he's assigned to say, hey, go find us something fun to do. And so she's responsible for going out the list. So just chasing down that customer further helped us understand who we're actually talking to in the process, because we're not talking to everyone. We can't talk to everyone.
So I guess if we take it back to our German example, we have a German founder that he needs to look at, for example, who is actually buying and researching his service versus who is paying for his service, because that might be different across cultures. The way they are buying can also be different across cultures, and obviously expectations and how they are looking at the service and what they are looking to get out of the service is very different. And I think we can take this to the next point of how do you localize messaging? So if you have the first sentence on the website and it's working perfectly in Germany, maybe even in New York, and you're trying to win businesses in California or in the Midwest, how do you make those adjustments to take the message across cultures? How does the one person differs across cultures, geographic zones, like areas? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, one of the things we do is that the first sentence isn't done even after we give it to people. It's still a process of then listening to people, finding out what's important to them. But we've noticed is that usually the messaging is so far off that we just need to at least bring it back and get it on the right track, get a formula behind it, tell them what they can measure and how to improve it. And so once you're going into some of those new areas, we still want to get that feedback. We still want to hear from people. So it may just be doing some of that upfront research of reaching out to people who would be that target customer and asking them, what kind of value would this provide for you? What would it take to get you to switch? How much time do you have in a day to sit on sales calls? How much time is dedicated towards that? Why would this solution be important to you? All those kind of questions that we can take as research to then find out ultimately, why does this person want this thing? That is the one thing that so many companies have a hard time connecting back. They don't want to tell you who the thing is for because it tries to be for everyone. And then they don't want to just straight out tell you why you want it because they're afraid that by telling you this one reason, they're neglecting all these other reasons. And that if they lean into telling you this is why you want it, if you don't want it that way, well, then you're not going to buy from us. It's not the case. It's not the case. You see to lean into that why and find it. So to answer that question, going to other markets, we need research. We need to hear from those potential customers in their words.
And every potential customer can have different reasons for wanting your product. So someone might want it for efficiency, someone might want it to save time, someone might want it for maybe, I don't know, employee experience. He wants to have his employees to have less effort, so and be more satisfied in the job. So I guess a lot of different audiences, obviously a lot of different segments, customer segments can obviously within the same country, but also outside the country, have different needs and wants for the very same product.
Yep. Yeah, and your argument could be the time you narrow down that person to say you really want this product, so HR stops nagging you every week. And it's like, okay, wow, yeah, never would have gotten that if we didn't get this far down into the person. For that person to read it, be like, how'd they know? How'd they know HR nags me every week about this?
Yeah.
That's what we want. We want those things that are so specific. So some of the things you touched on there, saving time, more efficient, we don't necessarily want to lean into those as much. Time, money, ease of use, control, revolutionary, all those things aren't good sales arguments because everyone claims to give you those sales arguments.
Yeah.
Nesquik can claim that I get more control with my chocolate syrup because I get to squeeze the bottle at the rate that I want. Whatever you want to tie it back to, that's where we got to move away from those obvious things and into those emotional motivators, those things that really connect back to say, I solved the problem because I know your problem.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Then the Nesquik chocolate is a very interesting example. But yeah,
it's easy to use, saves me money. I don't have to buy bottles over and over again of the syrup. I can just make my own at home. It's revolutionary. Ooh.
I guess it's a game of features versus emotions and selling features or selling the outcomes and
solutions. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people go with the features. The bottle gives you more control. But really what you want is chocolate. I don't know what the bottle solves actually. But
yeah, at the end of the day, I want to sit down with a little chocolate milk shaken over ice, made at home myself with my choice of milk.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting.
I'll be right back. Maybe we get one.
Okay. Amazing. So if we're looking at common mistakes companies do, and I'm going to focus specifically on Americans right now. Mm-hmm. If you're making messaging for American people, what are the most common mistakes you could do, traps you should avoid? What have you seen working and absolutely not resonating with Americans?
Yeah, let's roll all into one. This one more universal, that is done everywhere by everyone. And it's called the we problem. And let me do it again. Let me take a breath. The we problem is when every sentence on their site starts with we. Everything. We do this. We've done this for you. Our company is this. Or they start with the name of the company in third person and they speak about themselves that way. This is the one thing when creating messaging, whether for American customers, non-American customers, the little switch, instead of starting sentences with the word we, start those sentences with the word you. All that does, it's so small, but it just turns it around a little bit for the person to say, oh, this is what I get. Is they finally understand if that sentence starts with you, it's speaking to them. It's one of the first things I look for on a company's webpage when I look at the homepage copy. If you see you or good active verbs starting sentences, copy's well written. But what you normally see are a bunch of sentences that start with we, start with our, and then start with their company name. They repeat statements. They don't know how to describe their value. They've run out of things to say on the site. Whereas by the time we finish working with people, we have so many things to say. We're trying to cram them into the site because there's so many good sales arguments to be made. But when they just stick to the top ones of time, money, and ease of use, and there's only so many ways they can find the way to say that on the page.
Amazing. So we is one common mistakes. Can you give us another one?
What else do we have? No sales narrative behind the page. So websites have changed. Websites used to be a digital store, which made sense. This was our physical store. Go visit our digital store. Now what we're finding is the best converting websites are more like a digital salesperson. And so it's not, here's our store and here's all our options. Shop around, see what you like. It's not a choose your own adventure game. It is a structured narrative. The salesperson knows to come in talking about their problem, agitating that problem, presenting a solution, then giving some social proof, then addressing any objections. They know what they need to say to take someone from point A to point B instead of this choose your own, choose any page you want. And so a lot of times when we're working with companies, we end up pulling back a lot of the pages on their site, that they have too much stuff written, that no one's going to get to it, that they're not giving the person reading the page any cognitive closure. So sometimes just say less as well. Just say less.
So, and I guess there is a certain structure and narrative, like you said, that the sales page should take you through. So if you have a bunch of content telling your company history and that kind of stuff on the page, that's probably not how people expect a page to be in 2023. Maybe next year there will be no pages and everybody will work with ChatGPT. But for now...
But even that idea of a salesperson, if you think about meeting that salesperson, the web page is having a conversation with someone. It's a one-sided conversation, but it's still having a conversation. And we can choose to have that conversation be about the reader. It can be about the person we're talking to. But so many times, I think companies just assume that page and that conversation is about them.
Yeah.
So they like to write their company history. They like to write the features and stuff that they offer. Here's all the stuff about us. This is why you're here, right? It's all about us. And no one gives a shit about you. Yeah. They care about themselves. Tell them what's in it for them.
Amazing. Any other mistakes that come to your mind?
Not choosing a target customer, not working with us, not having a properly formed call to action button. We see companies missing a call to action up at the top of the page. A lot of times we want that call to action to just be the next step. So if we do a little callback to earlier in this, we talked about the buy tickets and book now versus see dates.
Yeah.
A big reason we believe that see dates converted higher is because it's just talking about the next thing you're doing in the sequence. Buy tickets and book now, that's later. That's further down the process. The next thing they're going to do is see dates on the calendar to see what's available. And so a lot of times that call to action on a website, just sell to the next step. Don't say, get started with your whole packet. Take the leap and change your company. Oh, my God, it's a
change your life.
Call to action. Yeah, no thanks. I'd like to maybe talk to someone, find out what more is involved here. I'm not ready to change my life. So selling to the next step. I said that's the other big one we see.
Amazing. I think there is another interesting concept. You're full of interesting ideas, but I think another interesting concept, which was the TEDx talk, is naming your year in advance. I've been doing something similar. I've been creating videos for myself in a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now,
Nice.
2 years from now. But I liked the name your year even better because it's videos are like you could record them and then they get hidden away in your cell phone or whatever. And as long as you don't review them again and again and again every day and remind yourself what you wanted to achieve in that time period, then it's easy to neglect. You have this one word year concept, and I saw on the TED Talk you had Showtime. This year was Japanese.
It is. It is. It's Yukio. So it's 2023
You have
Yukio.
you have this in front of you every day you come to work and you have this year name. So what's the idea here?
There's two parts to it. So the first part of naming your year is to have an it would be cool to list, which isn't a bucket list. It's just a handful of things that if you did would be kind of cool. And so once you have your it would be cool to list, you kind of look ahead at next year and say, well, what things on this list would be cool to do? And then once you pull out some of those and say, these would be cool to do next year, you don't even need to get them done. Just the idea of these things would be cool is then to name it around that list. So it's not an intention for the year. It's not setting a goal or a resolution for the year. It's giving it the title that you would name it at the end of that year if you did all those cool things. And then we see how it plays out. Then we see what the universe does with you.
And you are very intentional with your year name. 2019 was Showtime. You did your first TED Talk.
Just crazy that it worked out that way. And I've barely done any talk since then. That you thought that would have been a big go-to, and it was not. This year being named Yukio, it's about the time period in Japan's history when the merchant class started to come up and rise in the ranks. And all of a sudden, this was the birth of kabuki theater, because now people that couldn't afford it before can go out and afford to go to theater. It's the time that haikus became big, of poetry and expressionism. And then we had these woodblock prints, which was by Hakusai in the Great Wave off Kanagawa. And so it was that idea of that time period of, I want more theater in my life. I want more poetry. I want more art in my life. And so I kind of set that intention for the year. Oh my God. So Yukio translates to the floating world. And so by naming my year Yukio, somehow the universe interpreted that as let's put Joe on a cruise so he can float around Japan. And so I just returned a couple weeks ago from being out in Japan, literally floating around Japan. Just absolutely insane. Naming your year works. Please do it. Go do it.
Today. I actually want to name the rest of my year Showtime because this is what I'm focused on this year. But yeah, I really like the name of the Showtime. Showtime was like, wow, it's kind of like everything clicked. I heard this and everything clicked for me. So yeah, that's amazing.
Maybe next year Showtime.
I'm very liberal on how the definition of a year. So I would start the year in July 2023. It will last until July 2024, but that's still a year. So I'm taking some liberty here and playing with the calendar.
Love it.
I really believe in being intentional about your life. I personally saw that I guess what you wish is what you get. I remember last year I was thinking, okay, I'm done with Israel. I want to work. I want to take the business to America. I want to do this and that. And you kind of set things in motion when you decide to be intentional and do it. And that's kind of what happened to me. Even in less than a year, I was able to make the shift that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I really, again, I saw your video and everything kind of leaked, and last year was probably America. This year is probably Showtime. I really like the concept.
It's that idea of intention that we can make it happen or we can let it happen to us. In that same way that we can be intentional about choosing the customer we want to work with and the business we want to build. We can leave it up to chance, or we can take more of that intention and say, no, this is how I'd like it to play out. Which gets scary. It gets scary to do that. It gets scary to choose an intention because you feel like you're shoving away other intentions if you say, I want this one thing. And all just ties back into having some of that purpose behind it. Glad you're on board here as well, Tamir.
Yeah, I'm on board. I'm 1st of July, that's the beginning of my showtime here.
Gorgeous.
Amazing. Let's start wrapping up. Do you have anything else you wanted to speak about, share?
Man, we hit on 6-week cycles. We hit on first sentence. We hit on one target customer. We hit on naming your years in advance. Samir, we touched it all. We got almost all the way around.
Yeah, all the amazing ideas from you. So let's try and wrap it up with some actionable advice. Someone that's working on their messaging right now, they want to go into a new market. What would be the top 3 things they should do to be successful?
I've narrowed it down to 3 questions you need to ask to be successful. Question number 1, why did your customer choose you? Again, getting down to that core value of why. Why is this important to them? And one of the things I learned about conversion-based copywriting, the more I learned about copywriting, the less copy you actually write. And it's so much of it is getting an answer to that and taking that answer and saying, this is what we do. Not even changing it. You have it in the customer's voice. You have it in their words and their vernacular. So many times the answer to that question of why did you choose us is what you want to take and put back out there. So why did you choose me? Was one big question. Second one, what fears did they have in choosing you? I want to look at, with something like that, for you to look at the barriers to entry. What's standing in the way? What are they afraid of? Yes, we can talk about all the great features that you have, but if their big problem is, I don't know if my data will be secure working with your system, none of this matters. None of this matters. Everything you're saying does not matter because they can't stop thinking about this thing that you've chosen not to address. So what fears did they have in choosing you? I think it's huge. If we know why and we know what fears they have, we're in such a good place to have a better conversation. Which then for the third question is one of my favorite questions. If you could wave a magic wand and have us handle anything else for you, what would it be? And this is the innovation question. This is how we find out what other value can you provide for people. That for some of the tours we work with is the answer to this. It would have been great to have a water bottle when we arrived on the bus. Like, is that it? Is that the little piece of value we can help provide? We're destroying the environment with every water bottle we put out there. But is that the little piece of value that we can provide by just asking, what else could we have done for you? And so that question, huge in being innovative and staying on top of what you can do differently for your customers versus what competitors can do for their customers. We have to listen.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing this with us. I hope we get to see each other soon in Austin.
Definitely, Samir. Sounds good. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for helping to spread the word of stuff like this that's spewing out of my mouth to your people, to your network. I appreciate you pushing these ideas further out there that we can see more people and more businesses operating with intention. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.